Today we're looking at migration streams, and we're going to be looking at migration streams throughout the world. As you can see, we have North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and then they call Australia Oceania because of the islands and Australia all being combined together. Now, one thing we got to pay attention to very carefully on this is this key down here. We see that color represents income per person, so kind of like per capita GDP, this is per person. And we see that the developed countries or the wealthier countries are in orange, and some of these countries actually have no data in them. The next thing we're looking at is armed conflicts or areas of conflict. So this is where we're going to see kind of a political. This one would be economic factors. These are political factors or conflict. This here, up here, when we're looking at the income per person, this is going to be a pull factor. Down here, some of these can end up being a push factor. Armed conflict, generally speaking, is a push factor. Last thing we're going to be looking at in this key is the annual net migration streams, and we notice that larger arrows mean more people are moving. Smaller arrows, less people. So for example, if we look at Asia here, we see a large arrow moving towards the United States. That means we're looking at 500,000 plus people. As opposed to the United States moving to Oceania, we see this is represented by a thinner arrow, all right, which means that it's probably 10,000 people. So the larger the arrow, the more people that are moving. The thinner the arrow, the less that people are moving. Now, if we look at this chart and we notice some trends, generally speaking, we see that most people are moving into these wealthier countries. For example, we see large streams going into the United States, into Europe, and over here into Oceania. All right? Notice that each one of these is $10,000 income per person. Europe, United States, and Oceania all have a high per capita income. These are pull factors. This is pulling people towards them. Notice the areas that they're coming from. We have this armed conflict here in Mexico, down here in South America, Africa, down here in Southwest and Central Asia. All of these areas have large migration streams going to places that are generally more stable, higher income. So this is pushing them. This income is pulling them. This armed conflict is pushing. Income is pulling. Hopefully this starts to make a little bit more sense. Now that you guys have watched this, I want you to answer the bottom questions. Open your books to page 128 and 129, and then start, what do the stars represent? A push or pull factor. Thicker areas represent, thinner arrows represent.